strategies can we implement to promote sustainable food systems and improve food security whilst achieving a net zero emissions city? Sustainable food systems are described as systems that ensure food security and nutrition for all, whilst maintaining economic, social, and environmental sustainability for future generations. These systems can positively impact on various issues of food waste and food miles, shocks and stresses, farming land, reduction of pollution in our waterways, achieving the triple bottom line, and tackling climate change. But what is food security? According to Radimer, food security is defined as access by all people at all times to enough food for an active, healthy life. In 2012, a study found that due to the growing population, global production in 2050 should be 60% higher than that of 2005. To achieve this amount of growth in production, we not only need to increase food production, but in a way that reduces greenhouse gas emissions. Food sustainability and resilience is a continuous and increasing challenge across the globe as identified by the UN Sustainable Development Goals. On the globe and in Sydney, we share the same reliance on infrastructure and essential services to make food available for consumption. Whether affected by shocks such as natural disasters and pandemics, or stresses such as urbanisation, globalisation, and climate change, the common goal of improving our response to such risks will determine how we perform globally and locally, and what our future will look like for decades to come. Did you know that only 20% of Sydney's food comes from the Sydney Basin, but the remaining 80% is transported via road, sea, and air freight, all dependent on fuel, further adding to greenhouse gas emissions? But what are we doing about it? The City of Sydney has identified 10 targets for 2030 to make the city more sustainable and resilient, of which the number one item is striving for a net zero emissions city. However, the food miles we're accumulating is contributing to the greenhouse gas emissions. For example, cherries imported from the US travel 15,000 kilometres, equating to almost a tonne of carbon from an aeroplane. On top of that, as much as 35% of food becomes landfill, which decomposes and produces methane. To support these targets, 10 strategic directions for sustainable Sydney were outlined, of which 2, 6 and 9 encompass the directions that impact on food security. Let's check out Singapore, where land is scarce with only 1% of land being used for farming purposes in 2014, and only 7% of produce is grown locally, making Singapore heavily reliant on imported goods. Their closed-loop hydraulic system uses gravity collected from rainwater to rotate the wheel system. These 9-metre metal towers are housed in 4-storey tall, translucent glass structures to enable even distribution of sunlight to the plants. Sky Greens only grows chemical-free mini vegetables, which are higher in nutritional value and less susceptible to pests. Their organic produce have been stocked at grocery retailers such as Fair Price Finest. They boast a production value of 500 kilograms daily and running off 25% the cost that it takes to run a conventional farm, while saving on water, energy, and land. In Sydney, we can apply our technological innovations to create similar modern greenhouses for organic urban farming. Now let's head over to America, where infrastructure is aging and the rate of obesity in 2017 was at a high of 42%. Brooklyn Grange is a leader of urban rooftop farming and green roofing in the US. They produce 100,000 pounds of organic produce annually, which supplies neighbours, is sold to wholesalers, as well as being sold in public market events. Between their rooftop farms, Brooklyn Navy Yard Farm, Long Island City and Sunset Park, they occupy 5.6 hectares and produce 80,000 pounds of vegetables per year combined. What they do one step better than Singapore is their community engagement and educational programs. The 3 venues offer event spaces, farm tours, educational workshops, and industry workshops. The rooftop farms provide solutions to climate change, improvement of health, reduced food miles, social interaction, with the support of partial financing from the Department of Environmental Protection. Their systems reduce the heating and cooling requirements to the top levels of the buildings they sit on. They are also providing adaptive reuse of aging buildings rather than requiring additional land. Not only this, their soil beds absorb a total of 364,000 gallons rainfall that would have otherwise gone to the combined sewer overflow system, therefore reducing stormwater management. In Sydney, we too have ageing infrastructure and many buildings identified of heritage significance that would benefit from rooftop farms with dedicated groups to own and manage them. By also providing multifunctional rooftop farms, it can provide activated spaces for all age groups, socio-economic groups, and cultural backgrounds. There are so many things we can do here in Sydney to form a plan of action to ensure food security by implementing sustainable systems. We can establish sustainable urban farms, implement legislation for new developments to include community gardens, provide government incentives for single-dwelling households to establish private gardens, invest in technology, educate, support community markets, and incentivize business when they use local produce.